Every day, without even realizing it, most people invite chaos, financial stagnation, and missed opportunities into their lives. Not through dramatic mistakes, but through tiny invisible habits embedded into everyday life. Habits so ordinary that they escape our notice, and yet their impact shapes our homes, our careers, and our futures in ways far greater than we imagine. One of the most overlooked, underestimated mistakes: the way you treat your chairs. It sounds absurdly simple, maybe even trivial. But ancient Feng Shui masters knew a truth we often ignore. The way we arrange and interact with our environment mirrors the energy we cultivate within ourselves. And chairs, among the most ordinary objects we encounter daily, are far more than just a place to sit. They represent your support system, your personal authority, your readiness to hold space for new opportunities, wealth, and success. When chairs are treated carelessly, when they are cluttered, burdened, or loaded down with random objects, their energy shifts. Instead of supporting you, they start working silently against you. They become energetic roadblocks, quietly scattering your focus, weighing down your progress, and making it harder for prosperity and positive change to find their way into your life. Today, I'm going to show you 9 seemingly harmless mistakes people make with chairs that could be draining their energy, blocking their financial flow, and sabotaging their opportunities without even realizing it. More importantly, I'll show you simple, practical ways to correct these habits. Small changes that can produce powerful shifts, not only in your environment, but in the results you see every day. Before we dive deeper, I would love to invite you to support this journey. If you find value in learning how small, mindful actions can transform your energy and your future, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a fresh perspective, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. Your support helps me reach the first important milestone of 1,000 subscribers, allowing me to continue sharing high-quality, practical wisdom that can genuinely make a difference in your life. Every like, every share, and every new subscriber matters more than you know, and I am deeply grateful for your presence here. Now let's turn our focus inward. Imagine your favorite chair, the one you sink into at the end of a long day, the one tucked into the corner of your office, the one where you make plans, sip coffee, dream about your next chapter. Now imagine that chair covered in yesterday's worn clothes, piled with unopened mail, weighed down with gadgets, keys, random clutter accumulated without thought. At first glance, it seems harmless. Life is busy, things land where they land. But energetically, this sends a powerful message. This space is not ready. This life is weighed down. This energy is stagnant. In traditional Feng Shui, chairs are seen as symbolic thrones of personal energy. When a chair is clean, clear, and honored, it amplifies your personal authority, your magnetism, and your receptivity to success. It invites new opportunities to sit with you, whether in the form of business opportunities, wealth, partnerships, or creative inspiration. But when a chair is buried under clutter, it becomes a physical and energetic blockade. Your prosperity pauses, your clarity fades, your ability to seize opportunities weakens. And here's the thing, you don't have to believe in ancient philosophy to understand this. Modern environmental psychology tells the same story. Cluttered spaces produce cluttered minds. Stagnant environments produce stagnant emotions. Your physical surroundings constantly feed subtle signals to your subconscious mind, shaping your beliefs, behaviors, and decisions without you even realizing it. That's why today's lesson is so important. By simply shifting the way you treat your chairs, the spaces that support you, you can shift the momentum of your life. Not through superstition, not through overnight miracles, but through intentional, grounded, intelligent action. In a moment, I'm going to walk you through the 9 specific types of objects you should never leave on a chair, and why each of them creates blockages that ripple far beyond what you can see. I'll also share real-world examples along the way, true stories of people who made these subtle changes and watched their opportunities, clarity, and financial growth begin to accelerate. Because transformation does not always come from grand gestures. It comes from noticing the smallest, most invisible habits and correcting them with deliberate focus. And here's a promise. If you stay with me until the end of this video, I will also share a powerful reflection that ties all these teachings together. A simple but unforgettable principle you can carry with you. One that will change the way you look at every chair and every opportunity in your life from this day forward. So if you're ready to clear the invisible blocks, if you're ready to reclaim the momentum you deserve, if you're ready to create an environment that welcomes success instead of repelling it, let's begin with the very first hidden mistake that could be holding you back right now. 9. Things never to place on chairs. 1. Dirty clothes. Dirty clothes, although seemingly harmless, are one of the most damaging things you can leave on a chair from a Feng Shui perspective. In the energetic structure of your home, every item holds a symbolic weight. Dirty or worn clothes represent unresolved tasks, emotional burdens, and energy that has not been fully processed. When these items are draped across chairs, they create pockets of stagnation that disrupt the natural flow of energy through the space. Every time you glance at a chair burdened with yesterday's garments, even if only unconsciously, your mind receives a subtle signal. There are unfinished matters demanding your attention. Over time, this continual exposure to unresolved energy erodes your momentum, diminishes your motivation, and anchors a subconscious belief that you are always catching up rather than moving forward. The hidden risk is that this environment fosters procrastination, overwhelm, and emotional heaviness, which ultimately spills over into your professional and personal life. Momentum slows not because you lack ambition, but because the environment you have created passively reinforces the narrative of delay and disorganization. Practical solutions are straightforward but powerful. Assign a permanent, intentional space for worn clothes away from seating areas. Whether that's a dedicated laundry basket, a hanger for lightly used items, or an area inside a closet. The key is to separate the energy of action, sitting, working, resting, from the energy of transition, changing, cleansing, releasing. Every item of clothing should either be hung, folded properly, or moved to the laundry without touching your chair. When chairs are reserved solely for seating, they energetically reaffirm your readiness to act, decide, and advance. Over time, this subtle change builds into an environment that continually supports clarity, decisiveness, and forward movement, rather than anchoring you to yesterday's unfinished tasks. In real-world observations, homes where dirty clothes habitually cover chairs often reveal residents who feel chronically behind in various aspects of life, whether in managing finances, advancing careers, or maintaining health routines. Shifting this one behavior by treating chairs as sacred zones rather than catch-all surfaces has been shown to produce remarkable improvements in productivity, mental clarity, and even interpersonal relationships. The environmental shift helps the individual embody the energy of someone who is complete, prepared, and poised for new opportunities, rather than someone bogged down by lingering clutter. 2. Old wallets and bills. Old wallets, unpaid bills, and outdated financial documents carry the energy of scarcity, burden, and unresolved obligations. In Feng Shui, financial clutter is not a neutral presence. It actively anchors you to past financial struggles and projects subconscious messages of lack, fear, and instability into your environment. When these items are placed on chairs, spaces symbolically meant to support your authority and progress, the damage compounds. Chairs are designed to hold your present strength and future aspirations, but cluttering them with reminders of past financial challenges is like weighting your future down with yesterday's fears. Every time your mind encounters that cluttered chair, even in a fleeting moment, it reinforces a silent narrative. There are unresolved debts, there is financial instability, there is risk in moving forward. Over time, this unacknowledged messaging programs hesitation into your actions, clouds your decision-making with worry, and reduces your capacity to confidently embrace new financial opportunities. The hidden risk is not just about money management. It is about energy management. Old wallets filled with expired cards, outdated IDs, or receipts from purchases you no longer remember act like energetic anchors, tying you backward rather than freeing you to move forward. Similarly, bills that linger, whether paid or unpaid, create an ongoing emotional weight, subtly feeding stress, guilt, or fear into your subconscious mind. Feng Shui teaches that when financial energy stagnates, life opportunities stagnate as well. Prosperity, much like water, needs clear, open channels to flow into your life. When you surround yourself with relics of financial uncertainty, you subconsciously close the doors through which new wealth and success could otherwise enter. The practical solution is to be absolutely ruthless about clearing financial clutter, especially from key energetic spaces like chairs. Retire old wallets with gratitude for their service, but remove them from active spaces immediately. Shred or file bills appropriately rather than letting them pile up. Set clear, simple systems for handling finances. One place for incoming bills, another for receipts you actively need, and regular times each week for reviewing and clearing them. Never allow financial documents, old wallets, or anything related to what you owe to occupy spaces that should instead be holding what you are ready to receive. Reserve your chairs, and by extension, your energy, for clear, current, active support. A powerful real-world example comes from entrepreneur Richard Branson, whose approach to financial management embodies this exact principle. Branson is known for his philosophy of failing fast and moving on. He does not cling to investments, ventures, or financial structures that no longer serve growth. In one famous anecdote, Branson shut down an underperforming virgin business quickly, despite emotional attachments and prior investment. When asked why he moved so decisively, he responded that energy tied to old failures drags attention and resources away from future opportunities. He viewed it as essential to keep his chair, his personal seat of authority and momentum, clear and available for what was next, not cluttered with the emotional and financial debris of what had not worked. His ability to cut financial ties swiftly, cleanly, and respectfully is a major reason he was able to build a multinational empire spanning airlines, music, health, and space travel. The lesson is simple yet transformative. Wealth is not only about what you accumulate, but about what you are willing to release. Holding on to financial clutter, especially in critical energetic areas like chairs, locks you into outdated narratives about scarcity and loss. Clearing these items deliberately signals your readiness to operate from a place of strength, clarity, and growth. A chair free of old wallets and unpaid bills is not just an aesthetic choice, it is an energetic invitation to new prosperity. 3. Mirrors and reflective objects. Mirrors and reflective objects, while often admired for their beauty and functionality, are among the most disruptive elements when placed carelessly on chairs. In Feng Shui, mirrors are considered amplifiers and multipliers of energy. They do not judge what they reflect, they simply double it. When a mirror is placed on a chair, the intended energy of that space, stability, readiness, authority, is fragmented. Instead of reinforcing a strong, supportive foundation, the mirror splits and scatters the energy, creating emotional turbulence, mental distraction, and subtle instability in the individual's life. This scattering effect impacts focus, productivity, and emotional resilience far more than most people realize. A chair's symbolic role is to ground you, to offer support, and to hold space for you to engage with the world confidently. By placing a reflective object on it, you disrupt that grounding function at a fundamental level, making it harder for your subconscious mind to settle, concentrate, or feel emotionally secure. The hidden risk here extends beyond mere distraction. Reflective objects sitting in a place of support cause the mind to behave similarly. Reflecting, second-guessing, revisiting thoughts instead of anchoring into decisions. In the context of personal relationships, it can create a tendency toward miscommunication, hesitation, and emotional distance. In professional life, it can undermine your capacity to lead decisively, negotiate clearly, and follow through with firm action. Individuals who habitually allow mirrors or shiny, reflective surfaces to clutter important spaces like chairs often report feeling more anxious, less focused, and surprisingly fatigued without understanding the environmental root cause. Energy that should have been consolidated into purposeful momentum becomes diluted, bouncing endlessly without finding a stable anchor. The practical solution is simple yet vital. Mirrors should always be placed intentionally in spaces designed to expand light, invite clarity, or symbolically open new horizons. not in areas meant for support and consolidation like chairs. Keep reflective objects firmly mounted on walls at proper heights, away from seating surfaces. If a mirror must be stored temporarily, place it safely against a wall, not on a chair where it disrupts energetic flow. Moreover, periodically cleanse mirrors energetically, recognizing that over time they can hold the emotional residue of everything they have reflected. Treat them with the same deliberate respect you would grant any major amplifier of energy, because that is exactly what they are. In homes or offices where mirrors clutter chairs or low surfaces, people often experience symptoms that mimic cognitive overload, trouble finishing tasks, racing thoughts, constant second-guessing, and chronic procrastination. Clearing these reflective disturbances restores a surprising sense of calm and directed energy. The mind, no longer bombarded with chaotic visual signals, finds it easier to commit to actions, stay centered in conversations, and maintain emotional equilibrium even under pressure. To give a simple but striking real-world example, consider the office redesigns implemented at major firms like Google and Amazon. These companies invest heavily in optimizing environmental psychology for maximum employee focus and creativity. You will rarely, if ever, find loose mirrors in work areas. Reflections are controlled, minimized, or deliberately placed to expand natural light, but never to interrupt workspaces where stability and concentration are required. These companies understand that scattered visual energy equals scattered mental energy, a principle that aligns precisely with classical Feng Shui teachings. Ultimately, placing mirrors or reflective objects on chairs compromises your ability to embody the qualities chairs are meant to support: groundedness, stability, authority, readiness. It invites a subtle but corrosive energetic fragmentation into your daily experience, undermining not just how you feel, but how effectively you perform, connect, and achieve by achieving. The choice to keep chairs clear of mirrors and reflective clutter is not a trivial one. It is an intentional alignment with a life of greater clarity, decisiveness, and emotional strength. 4. Sharp objects: scissors, knives. Sharp objects such as scissors, knives, and other bladed tools carry a very distinct energy signature in Feng Shui, and when they are placed casually on chairs, the energetic consequences are far more damaging than most people assume. Sharp objects symbolize cutting, severing, and defensive energy. They embody the principle of division, conflict, and aggression. When these items are placed on a chair, a symbol of support, stability, and readiness, they disrupt the nurturing flow that the chair is supposed to amplify. Instead of reinforcing your foundation and holding space for prosperity and relationship growth, the sharp object projects an undercurrent of tension, emotional brittleness, and interpersonal disconnection into the environment. Over time, this can lead to tangible breakdowns in communication, lost business opportunities, strained friendships, and even persistent feelings of isolation or defensiveness without any obvious external cause. The hidden risk lies in how these symbolic energies seep into your subconscious mind. You may not consciously register the presence of scissors or a knife resting on a chair, but your energetic system responds instinctively to their cutting vibration. Chairs are meant to gather and concentrate supportive energy, much like a throne gathers the authority of a king or queen. When a sharp object invades that space, it splinters the energy instead of allowing it to build. This energetic disruption mirrors into your life experiences. Deals fall through at the last minute. Promising relationships cool unexpectedly. Collaborative projects stall for reasons that seem unrelated but are energetically consistent with the fragmented, severed vibration introduced by misplaced sharp objects. Moreover, sharp objects on chairs heighten internal emotional states of irritability, impatience, and quick trigger reactions. The mind, constantly exposed to symbols of cutting, becomes less forgiving, less tolerant, and more prone to making hasty, divisive decisions. In a workspace, this could mean arguments with colleagues, abrupt terminations of partnerships, or a general culture of mistrust and self-protection. In a household, it could mean more frequent disagreements, a sense of emotional distance, and a decline in the overall warmth and harmony of family interactions. The practical solution is simple but non-negotiable. Always store sharp objects properly, never on open surfaces like chairs, sofas, or even tabletops that are commonly used for work or gathering. Scissors should be kept in closed drawers, knife blocks, or designated containers where their energy is contained and purposefully directed. If a sharp object must be set down temporarily, it should be done with deliberate intent in a space not associated with support or emotional gathering. This basic habit not only protects the energetic integrity of your home or office, but also reinforces a deeper psychological habit of respecting boundaries, protecting emotional safety, and preserving interpersonal bonds. To illustrate how powerful symbolic objects are in influencing real-world outcomes, consider how luxury hospitality spaces, such as five-star hotels and elite executive lounges, handle sharp objects. You will rarely, if ever, see loose scissors, exposed knives, or any sharp tools left unattended in public view. Sharp items are carefully stored or presented only in controlled, intentional ways that serve specific purposes, such as dining or ceremonial use, never casually abandoned on shared furniture. These environments are meticulously designed to promote a sense of peace, cooperation, and stability. Qualities that arise not just from aesthetics, but from deep energetic intentionality. When analyzing personal spaces that suffer from chronic instability, whether it is a pattern of broken relationships, abrupt career setbacks, or persistent interpersonal friction, it is common to find an overabundance of exposed sharp objects, often placed without thought in critical energetic zones like chairs, desks, or entrances. Rectifying these patterns often begins with physically removing or properly containing the cutting instruments, thus restoring the possibility of energetic cohesion, trust building, and opportunity expansion. Ultimately, chairs are symbolic spaces of holding, receiving, and supporting. Introducing sharp, divisive energies into these spaces through careless placement of scissors, knives, or similar items is an act of energetic sabotage. It is a declaration, whether intentional or not, that support is conditional, unstable, or dangerous. By removing these sharp elements from seating areas and containing them appropriately, you send a powerful new message to your subconscious mind and to the universe. I am ready for sustained relationships. I am ready for opportunities that grow, not sever. I am ready for stability that endures, not fractures at the first challenge. This seemingly minor physical adjustment ripples outward into major improvements in your emotional health, your professional trajectory, and your capacity to build and maintain meaningful connections over time. 5. Mobile phones. Mobile phones, while indispensable in modern life, are among the most disruptive items you can introduce into seating areas, according to advanced Feng Shui principles. Mobile phones carry not only the physical energy of constant alerts, messages, and notifications, but also the intangible energy of external demands, expectations, and unfinished conversations. When placed casually on chairs, a space meant to symbolize rest, support, and personal authority, they introduce a subtle but powerful current of chaos, pulling attention away from the present moment and scattering it across countless external obligations. Chairs, by design, are intended to gather and stabilize your personal energy, offering a symbolic throne for clarity, connection, and readiness. A mobile phone, buzzing even when silent, fractures that stability, breaking the energetic integrity of the space and the mental clarity of the individual using it. The hidden risk here lies in how mobile phones erode the boundaries between personal restoration and external distraction. When you allow a chair to become a resting place for your phone, you unconsciously signal that external demands are prioritized over internal grounding. This fosters a chronic state of hypervigilance, mental fatigue, and emotional depletion. Over time, the cumulative effect of treating chairs as charging docks for technology rather than sanctuaries for human connection and renewal manifests in reduced focus, increased stress, impaired decision-making, and a persistent feeling of being behind in life, regardless of actual circumstances. Research in environmental psychology confirms that spaces overloaded with technological devices produce higher cortisol levels, lower sustained attention spans, and diminished emotional resilience. When mobile phones invade your seats of power, you are essentially allowing the endless demands of the outside world to occupy the very spaces where your energy should be recovering, recalibrating, and preparing for inspired action. In professional environments, this translates to decision fatigue, difficulty completing projects, and an inability to maintain deep strategic thinking. In personal environments, it undermines the quality of conversations, rest, and interpersonal bonding, leading to shallow connections, misunderstandings, and emotional exhaustion. The practical solution to counter this energetic erosion is both simple and transformative. Establish phone-free zones around all seating areas intended for rest, connection, or creative work. Designate specific locations for mobile phones, such as entryway tables, dedicated charging stations, or office drawers, physically separating them from chairs, sofas, and beds. By intentionally creating a visible spatial boundary between yourself and your devices, you reclaim your mental space, emotional energy, and personal authority. You send a signal not only to yourself, but to everyone who enters your space. Here, human presence matters more than digital distraction. Here, focus and renewal are prioritized over endless connectivity. Some of the world's most successful individuals attribute a large part of their sustained productivity and emotional resilience to strict device boundaries. Leaders like Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey have publicly discussed creating technology-free spaces within their homes, allowing their minds to fully rest, reset, and reconnect with creativity and higher-order thinking. These boundaries are not acts of deprivation, but acts of preservation, recognizing that human energy, like any other resource, must be protected if it is to remain powerful and effective over time. In Feng Shui analysis of households or offices where chairs are frequently cluttered with phones, chargers, and tablets, the occupants often report patterns of sleep disruption, fragmented attention, strained family dynamics, and a general feeling that time is always slipping away. Clearing mobile devices from chairs reintroduces an atmosphere of intentional presence, supporting deeper rest, richer relationships, and more decisive action. When you treat chairs with the sacred respect they deserve, reserving them for human connection rather than technological clutter, you invite into your life not only a calmer mind, but a stronger, clearer sense of who you are and what you are here to accomplish. Ultimately, allowing mobile phones to dominate seating areas fractures more than just your immediate focus. It fractures your long-term ability to sustain success, balance, and meaningful relationships. Removing phones from chairs and reclaiming these spaces for their intended energetic purpose is not a trivial aesthetic adjustment. It is a profound declaration of your commitment to honoring yourself, your energy, and your future. 6. House and car keys. House and car keys are potent symbols of authority, security, and access in Feng Shui. They represent your ability to move freely through the world, to open doors to new opportunities, and to secure the spaces and possessions that matter most. When keys are treated carelessly, tossed haphazardly onto chairs, or left scattered across critical energy points in your home, their symbolic power weakens. This seemingly small act sends a subtle but continuous message to your subconscious. Control is slipping, security is compromised, direction is uncertain. Chairs, in Feng Shui, symbolize foundational support and readiness to receive opportunities. When keys, symbols of access and protection, are dumped casually onto them, it disrupts both the energetic integrity of the chair and the psychological assurance tied to personal stability and financial authority. The hidden risk is not merely disorganization, but the gradual erosion of intentional living. Each time you lose track of your keys, misplace them, or delay important moments searching for them, you reinforce patterns of hesitation, scattered attention, and reactive living rather than proactive leadership. Over time, these minor disruptions accumulate into major patterns, missed opportunities, weakened reputations, and diminished confidence in both yourself and how others perceive you. In a professional environment, this can have devastating consequences. A single moment of misplaced focus can cause critical deals, delay key projects, or project an image of unreliability that takes years to rebuild. A real-world example highlights this perfectly. Consider the case of a mid-level executive at a rapidly growing tech startup. Known for his creativity and drive, he nevertheless developed a reputation for being somewhat disorganized. One morning, he was scheduled to meet a group of major investors who were considering a significant funding round. Running late as usual, he scrambled to find his house keys, which he had tossed the previous evening onto a living room chair buried under jackets and electronics. After wasting precious minutes in frantic search, he finally retrieved them and rushed to his car, only to discover that he had also misplaced the car keys somewhere in the chaos. By the time he arrived at the meeting, he was not only late, but visibly frazzled. The investors, noting his lack of preparation and composure, decided to walk away, citing concerns about leadership stability. That single missed meeting cost the company millions in potential investment and permanently altered the executive's career trajectory. This is not just an isolated story. It illustrates a broader truth. How you handle the small instruments of your authority, like your keys, directly mirrors how you manage larger responsibilities and opportunities. The energy you apply to safeguarding, respecting, and intentionally using your keys reflects the energy you bring to guarding and advancing your personal and financial pathways. The practical solution is straightforward but crucial. Establish a consistent, respected place for your keys away from seating areas and open surfaces. Use a dedicated key holder, a small dish by the entryway, or a secure drawer. Make the act of placing your keys intentional, almost ceremonial, a daily affirmation that you are in control of your life, your movement, and your opportunities. Never allow your keys to become afterthoughts, buried under clutter, or left to chance. Respect them as extensions of your ability to move through the world with clarity and confidence. In spaces analyzed through Feng Shui diagnostics, households or offices where keys are treated with casual neglect often display patterns of mistiming, last-minute chaos, and an ongoing sense of being locked out of the very opportunities the residents seek. Conversely, environments where keys are stored with respect and intention often foster a much stronger sense of personal efficacy, clearer decision-making, and greater financial and career stability. Ultimately, chairs are places of preparation, grounding, and presence. Allowing keys, the literal and symbolic tools of access, to disrupt that space diminishes your readiness to step through new doors when they appear. By protecting the symbolic power of your keys and maintaining the sanctity of your chairs, you realign yourself with a path of greater security, decisive action, and effortless movement towards success. 7. Shoes. Shoes are one of the most overlooked but energetically potent objects in any environment. In Feng Shui, shoes symbolize the energy of movement through the external world, carrying with them all the energies encountered outside, both positive and negative. Shoes pick up dirt, energetic residue from crowded places, tension from stressful environments, and even the energetic imprints of other people's emotions. When shoes are carelessly placed on chairs, a space meant to symbolize personal support, stability, and readiness for new opportunities, they bring that external chaos directly into one of the most critical energetic anchors of your home. Chairs should be spaces of clarity, receptivity, and power. Introducing shoes into this context contaminates that purity with external disturbances that can subtly erode your sense of safety, self-assurance, and energetic coherence. The hidden risk here goes beyond mere dirt or clutter. Energetically, bringing the outside world's residue into your sacred living areas, particularly onto chairs, blurs the boundary between your protected inner sanctuary and the chaotic unpredictability of the outside environment. Over time, this weakens your emotional resilience, compromises your mental clarity, and invites feelings of overwhelm, confusion, and vulnerability. In professional life, this can manifest as a constant struggle to maintain focus amid distractions. In personal life, it can show up as difficulty establishing emotional boundaries, persistent fatigue, or a recurring sense of unease without any clear external cause. From a psychological perspective, environments where shoes are left scattered across important spaces like chairs often reflect underlying patterns of boundary issues, difficulty separating work from rest, others' needs from personal priorities, or external pressures from internal peace. Residents in such environments commonly experience higher levels of stress, more frequent conflicts, and a diminished ability to recover fully from the demands of the outside world. The practical solution is rooted in deliberate boundary creation. Store shoes neatly and intentionally away from seating areas, ideally near the entrance of the home, where their external energy can be symbolically and physically contained before it infiltrates deeper into your living space. Use a closed shoe cabinet, a designated rack, or at minimum, a neatly maintained entry mat to signal both to yourself and to the energy of your home that outside burdens are acknowledged but kept at a respectful distance. Never allow shoes to rest on chairs, beds, or any furniture associated with rest, support, or creative activity. In high-functioning households and professional environments, you will often observe clear rituals around managing shoes and external garments. In many cultures, removing shoes before fully entering the living space is not merely a hygienic habit, but a profound energetic practice, one that maintains the sanctity of the inner environment and protects the energetic coherence necessary for personal growth and emotional health. In Feng Shui, this ritual is critical for maintaining a stable, harmonious flow of qi, the life force energy that animates and supports all aspects of well-being. The symbolic message matters deeply. When you take the time to honor the transition between outside and inside, between the public and the personal, you reinforce the psychological and energetic boundaries that sustain your vitality and protect your aspirations. You create a clear distinction. Here, inside this space, I am safe, I am grounded, I am sovereign. Allowing shoes to blur that distinction by occupying chairs confuses that energetic message, inviting instability into spaces where you need clarity, strength, and renewal the most. To illustrate the importance of this practice, consider how elite wellness retreats, luxury resorts, and even high-end executive centers manage personal environments. Guests are often asked to remove shoes upon entry, not merely as a cleanliness measure, but as a way of reinforcing a transition into a more sacred, elevated mode of being. The absence of outside debris, both physical and energetic, fosters a sense of peace, focused intention, and rejuvenation that is palpable to anyone who enters. You can create the same effect in your own space by respecting the symbolic and energetic boundary between the outside world and your inner sanctuary, beginning with something as seemingly simple, but profoundly impactful, as keeping shoes off your chairs. Ultimately, chairs are not just places to sit. They are thrones of personal energy, readiness, and authority. Allowing shoes, which are literal carriers of the world's chaos, to rest on them is a symbolic abdication of that authority. It is a silent concession that outside noise is allowed to invade your internal order. By keeping shoes away from chairs and important energetic points, you reclaim your space as one of intentional living, strong boundaries, and unwavering personal power, setting the foundation for success, resilience, and true prosperity. 8. Laptops and work devices. Laptops and work-related devices are tools of efficiency, productivity, and connectivity, but they also carry the energetic weight of deadlines, pressure, cognitive overload, and digital entanglement. In Feng Shui, where every item has both physical function and symbolic presence, these devices represent mental engagement, problem-solving, and external output. When laptops, tablets, or work phones are placed on chairs, objects symbolically associated with rest, conversation, support, and receptivity, you create an immediate energetic conflict. Chairs are designed to hold human presence, emotional connection, and supportive stability, while work devices are extensions of your output, responsibility, and cognitive load. When the two are forced into the same space, the result is energetic distortion. Rest becomes harder, presence becomes fractured, and the subconscious begins to associate home environments with stress, deadlines, and digital urgency, even during moments meant for decompression. The hidden risk is subtle but pervasive. When your work devices consistently occupy personal furniture like chairs, you begin to dissolve the boundaries between work and life, stress and recovery, thinking and being. Over time, this erodes your ability to recharge, fragmenting your emotional availability and creating a mental atmosphere where your nervous system remains in a perpetual state of low-grade alertness. The chair that once invited connection with a loved one or quiet reflection over coffee now becomes a symbol of that lingering email, the undone report, or tomorrow's performance call. This leakage of professional energy into personal recovery space is one of the primary causes of burnout in high-achieving individuals, particularly those working from home or blending professional tools into household settings. From a psychological standpoint, the brain thrives on environmental cues. When we associate certain spaces with rest, the mind responds by activating parasympathetic pathways, calming the nervous system, and preparing the body to reset. Conversely, when devices that represent action, urgency, and engagement invade those spaces, the body remains in sympathetic mode, waking from on edge, distracted, and physically unable to enter deep rest or emotional openness. This is why individuals who use their laptops or phones while sitting in dining chairs, living room recliners, or even bedroom corners often report insomnia, tension headaches, difficulty with sustained attention, and a sense of disconnection from loved ones, even when physically present. The solution is both symbolic and practical. Keep tech out of relaxation zones. Create clear energetic divisions in your home, even if your space is small. Use a defined desk or designated workspace for all digital activity, and resist the temptation to bring laptops into your living areas or onto furniture intended for conversation or emotional restoration. If you must work from a shared space, be diligent about removing devices immediately after completing tasks. Do not let a chair absorb the lingering vibration of unfinished emails, financial reports, or late-night messages. Instead, reorient the space with intention. Light a candle, place a plant, or simply sit with presence for 5 minutes to neutralize the residual mental imprint that technology leaves behind. In high-performance environments such as elite creative studios or executive retreats, one of the first design principles implemented is spatial zoning. Tech stays in the work area, and social or emotional zones remain tech-free. This is not an accident, but a proven method to optimize brain function, emotional regulation, and interpersonal trust. In fact, companies like Apple and Google design entire lounges and meeting spaces that are intentionally free of screens or cords, are to encourage deeper thinking and uninterrupted human interaction. The principle behind this is ancient. Where you place your tools, you place your attention. And where you place your attention is what grows. Homes that ignore this principle, where laptops and tablets rest casually on dining chairs, armchairs, or other shared seating areas, often suffer from persistent relationship friction, blurred personal-professional boundaries, and a noticeable reduction in the home's overall warmth. Over time, even children or other family members begin to associate every room with work energy, reducing their own capacity to settle or connect. This creates an emotional undertow where no one fully rests, no one fully engages, and the home loses its sanctuary quality. Chairs are energetic thrones of readiness and reception. By placing work devices onto them, you overload that readiness with tension, performance anxiety, and mental noise. You distort the receptivity of the chair by constantly filling it with the unresolved energy of tasks, projects, and deadlines. The visual of a laptop resting on a kitchen chair at midnight is not just a sign of ambition. It is a sign of chronic overextension, a warning that the environment is no longer supporting the person, but consuming them. To restore balance, adopt a firm ritual of closure. Once work is done, remove all devices from shared spaces, clear the chair, and reclaim it as a place of presence and peace. Let your body and mind know that here, in this moment, you are safe, complete, and unavailable to the demands of the digital world. This single habit, repeated daily, reprograms your environment to become your ally, your anchor, and your refuge. It protects your energy, restores your boundaries, and invites the kind of clarity and composure that cannot coexist with scattered focus and tech sprawl. In short, removing work devices from chairs is not just about tidiness. It is about reclaiming sovereignty over your space, your time, and ultimately, your life. 9. Old pillows or damaged items. Old pillows and damaged items, though often sentimental or overlooked, are silent reservoirs of stagnant energy in any living space. In Feng Shui, soft furnishings such as pillows are associated with comfort, emotional support, and nurturing energy. When these objects are fresh, well-maintained, and vibrant, they reinforce a positive cycle of renewal, relaxation, and restoration. However, when pillows become worn out, flattened, stained, or otherwise degraded, they stop supporting vitality and instead begin to radiate exhaustion, emotional heaviness, and even the energetic residue of illness or past struggles. Placing old, neglected pillows on chairs, which are themselves symbolic of support, readiness, and authority, compounds this effect by anchoring stagnation directly into spaces meant for renewal and empowerment. The hidden risk of keeping old or damaged soft furnishings is that they subtly train your subconscious mind to accept deterioration, fatigue, and emotional depletion as normal. Each time you see or interact with a worn pillow slumped across a chair, your mind receives a subliminal message that decline is acceptable, that weariness is inevitable, and that nurturing your energy is somehow a low priority. Over time, this messaging seeps into your daily habits, reducing your willingness to invest in self-care, emotional maintenance, and personal growth. Life begins to feel heavier, more tiring, and less full of possibility, not because external circumstances have changed dramatically, but because the environment is silently affirming stagnation rather than inviting renewal. From a psychological standpoint, visible signs of decay and disrepair in the home environment correlate strongly with feelings of helplessness, depressive moods, and chronic stress responses. Studies in environmental psychology have consistently shown that individuals surrounded by broken, worn, or dirty objects report lower overall satisfaction with life, greater difficulty setting and achieving goals, and higher rates of anxiety. When old pillows occupy chairs, the physical softness that should symbolize comfort instead becomes a tangible representation of unaddressed decline, creating a dissonance between what your body seeks, support, rest, and what the space actually offers, resignation, fatigue. The practical solution is rooted in intentional renewal. Rotate and refresh soft furnishings regularly, treating the process not as a chore but as an act of energetic maintenance for your future self. Replace pillows before they lose their loft, vibrancy, or structural integrity. Donate or recycle damaged items rather than clinging to them out of misplaced frugality or nostalgia. Recognize that by allowing only vibrant, clean, supportive objects into your sacred spaces, you are affirming your commitment to growth, vitality, and emotional well-being. Chairs as energy anchors deserve to be crowned with objects that amplify strength and freshness, not burdened with remnants of past comfort now turned into energetic liabilities. In spaces analyzed through Feng Shui practices, chairs burdened with old or damaged soft furnishings often correlate with stagnation in career paths, plateaus in personal development, or a general feeling of being stuck without clear cause. Clearing these items and replacing them with fresh, intentional pieces acts as an energetic reset, unblocking pathways for new opportunities, fresh perspectives, and emotional revitalization. This shift often translates into seemingly unrelated but very real changes: job offers, creative breakthroughs, improvements in health, or rekindled passion in relationships. To illustrate the importance of maintaining vibrancy in your environment, consider the practices of elite hospitality groups and wellness retreats. These spaces meticulously replace soft furnishings not just for cleanliness, but for energetic renewal. A pillow past its prime is immediately rotated out because it is understood that every tactile experience contributes to the guest's psychological state. Fresh, supportive, clean furnishings silently communicate abundance, attention to detail, and an invitation to fully rest and recharge. An invitation that directly mirrors the kind of energetic offering you want to extend to yourself and those who share your home. Ultimately, chairs are not merely places to sit. They are sacred thrones of energetic intention, symbolizing your readiness to engage with the world from a position of stability and strength. Allowing old, depleted, or damaged items to occupy that throne depletes not just the chair's symbolic power, but your own capacity for renewal and progress. By refreshing your soft furnishings regularly, By honoring the subtle language of your environment, you tell yourself and the universe, I choose vitality over fatigue, growth over stagnation, and readiness over resignation. Such a declaration, though made through the smallest of physical actions, lays the foundation for profound transformation in every aspect of your life. How to treat chairs correctly. Treating chairs correctly is not merely a matter of tidiness or decor aesthetics. It is a profound act of energetic alignment and intentional living. Chairs, in the language of environmental energy, represent readiness, stability, and the capacity to hold space for new opportunities, relationships, and wealth to enter your life. Maintaining them properly requires not just cleaning the surface, but honoring their symbolic role every day through deliberate, conscious actions. Keeping chairs clean, open, and welcoming is the foundation. This means no clothes, no paperwork, no groceries, no electronic clutter. A chair should appear as if it is constantly ready to receive someone, or metaphorically, to receive an opportunity. When a chair remains visually and energetically open, your subconscious registers it as an invitation, a signal that you are available, stable, and prepared for good things to sit with you and stay. Thinking of every chair in your environment as a living, breathing invitation shifts your perspective dramatically. Rather than viewing chairs as passive objects, you recognize them as dynamic participants in your daily energetic dialogue with the world. Every time you walk past an empty, clean chair, you reinforce the idea that you have space in your life for expansion, for abundance, for new alliances. Every time a chair becomes cluttered, you unwittingly send the opposite message, that your life is too full of unresolved tasks, that you are unavailable for new beginnings, that you are overwhelmed with what already exists. This energetic signaling, subtle as it may be, shapes the frequency at which opportunities recognize and respond to you. Storing important items like keys, wallets, and documents in intentional, stable locations, rather than casually tossing them onto chairs, is a crucial part of maintaining this energetic integrity. Assigning designated, respectful places for your daily essentials trains your mind to value order, stability, and intentional action. A dedicated key tray, a purposeful wallet drawer, an organized document shelf, all of these seemingly mundane choices echo powerful affirmations. I am responsible. I am ready. I am grounded. Tossing important objects onto chairs, on the other hand, communicates scattered priorities and disrespect for the very tools that facilitate your security, movement, and success. Over time, even small lapses accumulate into patterns of missed opportunities, miscommunication, and emotional disarray. The discipline of maintaining clear, welcoming chairs extends beyond the chair itself. It cultivates a habit of mindfulness that infuses every part of your life. It teaches you to create and hold space for the things you desire instead of crowding them out with old burdens or careless habits. It sharpens your awareness of how physical environments influence emotional and energetic states, allowing you to design your surroundings with intention rather than inertia. Most importantly, it reminds you daily that prosperity, love, inspiration, and success are not things you chase desperately across distant horizons. They are guests you invite graciously into the spaces you prepare with care, respect, and unwavering belief that you are worthy of hosting them fully. When every chair in your home stands as a silent yet powerful affirmation of this truth, the results in your external reality often follow swiftly and unmistakably. Reflection story and final lesson. One of the most profound examples of the link between disciplined environmental management and disciplined success can be seen in the life of Warren Buffett, one of the most respected and successful investors of all time. Buffett is widely known not just for his financial genius, but for his extreme simplicity and intentionality in both his personal and professional environments. Despite being a billionaire, he still lives in the modest Omaha home he bought in 1958. His office is famously uncluttered, his daily routines straightforward, and his approach to possessions ruthlessly intentional. Buffett has often stated that clarity of mind is his greatest asset, and maintaining a clear, focused environment is a crucial part of protecting that asset. He does not allow clutter, physical or mental, to accumulate because he understands that every distraction, every unmade decision, every unattended pile of paperwork drains cognitive and emotional energy that could otherwise be directed toward high-impact decisions. There is a story often told by people who have visited Buffett's office. There are no stacks of random papers, no over-decorated walls, no unnecessary objects strewn across surfaces. Everything has a place, and everything serves a purpose. This is not because he cannot afford extravagance, but because he understands on a deep level that the spaces we inhabit reflect and reinforce the disciplines we practice internally. By keeping his environment ruthlessly simple and focused, Buffett ensures that his mind remains just as clear, agile, and prepared for opportunities as his external surroundings suggest. This is not merely an aesthetic choice, it is a strategy for excellence. The lesson here is both simple and powerful. Success doesn't happen by accident. It is the cumulative result of thousands of invisible, often overlooked daily choices, including how you treat the spaces around you. Every time you leave a chair clear and welcoming, every time you put away your keys or replace a worn pillow, or resist dumping your work laptop onto a chair at the end of the day, you are making a choice. That choice either moves you closer to the person you aspire to become or pulls you subtly away from it. Tiny, consistent acts of care for your environment compound into massive gains in clarity, discipline, and energetic availability. Prosperity, fulfillment, and emotional resilience are not sudden rewards, but long-term dividends paid out to those who respect the unseen architecture of their lives. The way you treat the simplest objects, the chair waiting silently in the corner, the keys resting securely in their place, becomes the way you treat yourself, your dreams, and the opportunities the universe tries to send you. Final prosperity does not begin by endlessly chasing after new opportunities. It begins by honoring and respecting the opportunities you already possess. The way you treat the simple spaces around you, the chairs that hold your daily moments, the surfaces that cradle your essentials, the corners that either invite or block new energy, tells the universe exactly how prepared you are to receive more. Every cleared chair, every thoughtfully stored key, every refreshed pillow is a physical affirmation that you value stability, readiness, and growth. When you create order and respect within your environment, you naturally draw more abundance, clarity, and success into your life, because like attracts like. Small actions build an energetic foundation strong enough to hold even your greatest ambitions. So today I invite you to pause and truly look around your space. Without judgment, with only gentle awareness, ask yourself, what is one thing I will remove today to welcome better energy into my life? Maybe it is a stack of old magazines on a chair, a laptop left unattended in the living room, or a pair of shoes resting where openness should live. Choose one item, clear it with intention, and notice the shift it creates, not just in your space, but in your mind and your spirit. Transformation begins in the smallest acts of respect and presence. If this video has inspired you even in the smallest way, I warmly invite you to share your experience in the comments below. Let me know what you are choosing to clear and how it feels to reclaim that little piece of your energetic foundation. Your story may inspire someone else to begin their own quiet revolution toward a more prosperous and grounded life. And if you found this message valuable, please consider liking this video, subscribing to New Day Mindfulness, and sharing it with others who might be ready to welcome a new flow of positive energy into their lives. Every like, every share, and every new subscriber brings me closer to reaching 1,000 followers, allowing me to continue creating and sharing even more quality content to support your journey toward a more aligned, abundant life. Thank you so much for being here today. Your energy matters, your space matters, and your future is waiting for you to clear a seat for it right now.